Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. Today, we're going to be talking about how to sell online, getting the most out of your e-commerce store. My name is Devin. I'll be joined momentarily by my coworker, Belinda, and we are both excited to talk to you today about selling online and just a handful of tips and tricks that we've kind of picked up throughout the years on how to get the most out of your experience. So let me see if I can advance this slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, my name is Devin. I'm joined today by Belinda, and she has been a design consultant with Bluehost and has had Belinda weigh in on this number to make sure I don't give the wrong number. I want to say upwards of 200, maybe 300 websites. Would you agree with that? Somewhere around
Yeah,
there?
probably somewhere around that. Yeah.
Awesome. Also, for whatever reason, Belinda, it doesn't look like your video is coming through. I can see that your camera is turned on, but we're not able to see your face right now, but that's okay. So yeah, Belinda is on our design team. So Bluehost has a service. If you need help designing your website, you can call in and you can have a design consultation and work with some of the Bluehost employees to have them work with you and to get your website up and running. Welcome, Belinda. We can see you now. What we will be covering today. There's only 4 grand topics that we'll be covering, but within each of those topics, there are a handful of other topics. So first, we're going to be talking about how to have a great setup. You got to have a good foundation if we're going to build on something more than that. Then I think we're going to probably spend most of our time talking about how to improve your user's experience with your website, because I think that's one of the main keys to getting the most out of your e-commerce website is making sure that your customers have a good user experience when they're on your site. Once we've talked about having a great setup and making sure that your user's experience is great, then we'll talk about how to improve the traffic to your site. And once we have traffic to our site, we're going to talk a little bit about how to develop your customer relationships to make sure that your e-commerce store is really moving on all cylinders and performing well. So let's get right into it. Having a great setup. So this is a little bit foundational. We expect that a lot of you have already gone through these stages of the process. To start, obviously you're going to need a great host, and no surprise, we recommend Bluehost. It's a great product for a really wonderful price. Should give you most of the things you need in a host, pretty much everything you need in a host to get off the ground with an e-commerce website. Once you have a host, you'll need a domain name. You want something that reflects your business and lets your customers and users understand what your website is about and what they should expect to get when they're on your website. And we'll talk about that more just a moment. I also recommend that you have a wireframe and you have a plan on a general idea of what you want your website to look like and how you want it to work. Whether you want a form on your website or if you want videos on your website, if you want people to reach out to you so you can have a conversation, so you can give them a custom quote, or if you want them to be able to purchase right off your website, there's a bunch of different functionalities that you can implement when you're building an e-commerce website. And I think it helps if you take some time at the beginning to really think through how you want your website to work. Once you have a plan, I recommend getting into your logo and your color scheme and kind of the overall look of your brand and of your website. When you have a website, it's essentially like your online brick and mortar store that people can go and shop at. So you want to make sure that it's memorable, that people can recognize your brand if you plan on being active in communities and if you expect repeat customers, which I think everyone should have that goal in mind. Once you have your framework and your branding, then it's important that you have a good website. And we recommend WordPress. It's very powerful. It has a great support system. It can be a little bit complex at times, but there's amazing resources out there to walk you through and to help you get through those times when you struggle. So we recommend WordPress. And then once you have WordPress, that's basically the foundation that you're building your website on. That's a program that allows you to build the website, but then you need to implement a store within that website. So we recommend using WooCommerce. It's a WordPress plugin, and it's very powerful and has a lot of great functionality. So this is kind of the foundational things that you need before we dive too much into your WooCommerce website. And for fun, we have some example of some bad domain names. When you pick a domain name, like I mentioned, you want it to be a reflection of your brand. You want your customers to know exactly what they're doing on your website. We won't go through all of these, but it's important when you choose a domain name that it's not something that can be misunderstood or misheard. For example, children's wear, clothing, a store about children's clothing could be misunderstood as children swear. So when you type it out, you want to make sure that there's not going to be any misunderstanding. You can see that some of these are perhaps bigger misunderstandings than other. My favorite is instead of the speed of art, that can also be misconstrued as speed of fart. I don't think a lot of people want to send their customers to that website. Moving along, here's some example of great domain names: crumblecookies.com, youbreakifix.com, womenshealthaz.com, and homeadvisor.com. I particularly like womenshealthaz.com because it tells you a lot just in that domain. We know that it's based in Arizona, we know that it's about health, and we know that it's specific to women. So that's a lot of information. Already, I have an idea of who's going to that website and what they're going to be looking for when they go there. So just some ideas to keep in mind when you're creating your own website and finding your own domain. Well-designed brand, there's a lot that goes into designing a brand that's memorable. But I think it's important because once you start acting consistently in a space, people can start recognizing your brand. And with that comes quality of product, quality of service, and quality of customer care. So that's essentially your store's reputation. So I think building a brand can be helpful. However, I also would say that I wouldn't make this your #1 priority as you're going through and creating your e-commerce store. If you sell hand knitted socks that have fun designs on them, I think it's okay to get your store up and running and to start building customer base before you go too deep into branding. So that's our foundation. We assume that most people on this call have done those things already. If you haven't, it's just a good kind of recap on where you should be. But for chapter 2, we're going to bring Belinda in. So Belinda, take us away.
Hey, thanks, Devin. Yeah, so chapter 2 is how to improve your user's experience. You kind of want to put yourself in the customer's shoes and really understand how they are, operating your site. So we'll go to the next slide. So you may have heard these terms thrown around. What is UX and UI? Kind of scary. It seems kind of scary, but they're not. User experience, what that refers to is all aspects of end interactions with a company, its service, and your products. So examples of that are interaction design, exploring how a person may interact with your site. Wireframing, which is, as we've kind of mentioned in the foundation section, is kind of having a plan for your site. Now, with wireframes, they don't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to like make huge mock-ups or anything. I've had people hand them to me on a sheet of paper, and I've been able, it's like, hey, here's where the logo goes, so it doesn't have to be crazy. The next one is information architecture, focusing on organizing, structuring, and labeling content in an effective, sustainable way. Next is user research scenarios, just understanding how, like your user's going to use it. Is it, what are their needs? What are their barriers? And more in the context of how they would use your site. So user interface, this one is my favorite, honestly, because it's all about design. Anything in which the user interacts with and is using a digital product, using using your website with different colors and variations that are coming into it. So For visual design, that's what the user's seeing on the site. Is it organized well? That's a huge thing. Colors, do the colors in this of the site work well together, and do they support your brand? Graphic design, we talked about it with the logo, for example. Does the imagery and branding go well together on your site? Does it work harmoniously? Layouts, organizing your information to get the most important information in front of your customer first. And then typography. How is that styled on your site? Is it, you wouldn't see a construction site with scripty font. It wouldn't make much sense. So, building that towards your brand kind of creates this cohesive environment for your users to interact in, or your customers. Um, to start out, the first thing that your customers are going to interact with is a landing page. So, what makes a good landing page? First of all, it's clean, simple, and organized. Easy to navigate homepage so that the client doesn't have to guess how to navigate your site. Again, if you put yourself in the customer's shoes, would you be confused if everything was just jumbled everywhere? You would, and you would want to like leave the site. We don't want that. Your navigation menu is the map to your site. It sits usually at the top of the screen of the window, and moving it kind of confuses people. So a real world example maybe if you were getting into a car, for example, and your speedometer was on the door panel. It was like, okay, hey, that doesn't make sense. I don't want to drive this car. It's confusing. So like you'd probably purchase another car. Um, high quality images, I can't stress this enough, and it's literally on every single slide because it's super important. You want high quality images that aren't blurry, are going to entice the person to buy your product. So, like I said, blurry images or product images that are too tiny or too small, that you're not going to really like get the full effect of the product. Heading hierarchy, using your headings or subheadings to guide your visitors. Um, it's like important if you want like to have the important information in a bigger font with the subheadings under that, just to kind of guide your user. The compelling written content. Having keyword rich content on your site will like entice your customer to read that. But one of the pitfalls that I've seen is when customers put too much, or my clients will put too much text on there, and what'll happen is their customer won't want to read it, so then they just kind of like navigate away from it. And there could have been some really useful information in there, but it was kind of like surrounded by other information that didn't need to be there. Um, so the next one is strong call to actions. You've probably seen them, but just never really maybe understood what they were. It's an enticing offer for someone to click on and then go to another part of your site to kind of guide them through there. You want them to purchase. That's the end goal. What's the next steps? If you have it on the landing page, they're more into or more they'll probably want to click on it more, and then move to like the shop page, for example. And then avoid unneeded plugins. So as much as flaming fire emojis and sparkly cursors are, it's unneeded and will ultimately slow down your site, which again will make a client want to leave and be like, hey, I don't want this. This is too slow. Okay. So some examples of bad landing pages. We have cruise.co.uk. There's too much going on here. I don't even know where to look. And the navigation is basically two navigations, so I can't really follow that. Whereas SAP is just basically it's like a wall of content, and I don't want to read that. So, but they redeem themselves. So this is what they've updated their sites to. Um, it's everything's above the fold. It's like I know what I'm supposed to do on the cruise. I want to, book a cruise. So I want to know when I'm going to go, like where am I going to go, and then if I need to call somebody, the information's right there. In the sap.com one, same thing. We now have a navigation in this. They don't have a wall of text, and they have a great call to action saying, hey, this is the next steps. You don't have to scroll any further than this to get further into the site. Um, the next step, other than a great landing page, is having a great shop page. Again, high quality, professional images. I've had people turn in images to me that were taken on a towel with like their cat had been laying on it for like 6 months, and it's like I'd rather have a product that it's on a crisp, clean background, and I can visually see the product easier. You want to categorize your products. Now, if you've got hundreds of products and it's just they're all lumped together, a customer's not going to be able to find their way through or navigate through that site very easily to find what they're looking for. And then kind of hand in hand with the categories are product filters. Product filters are going to allow you to take those 100 search results and narrow it down to price range, color, and like size, anything that the customer can, that I'm like directly looking for a women's shoe in pink at this price range. It's going to show you those results faster and cause less confusion. We just don't want to confuse people. So examples of good shop pages, Nike.com has a great example. It's clean. There's not any distracting information around the product images. You can see what the price is, how many colors that these particular sneakers come in, or in some cases sportswear. You kind of can see the filter on the side. I mean, if you go to Nike.com, you will obviously see this, but you'll be able to, select the gender that you want of your shoe. Like if you don't care one way or the other, you can click on unisex. So you can like narrow down that filter quite a bit. And then hand in hand with the product or the shop page is your single product pages. Again, yes, again, high quality images. You want those high quality images. Um, Product info is clearly displayed. You want people to be able to find the price, size, care instructions. You don't want them to, go through with this, guesswork of trying to figure out what this product's about. I kind of live and die by like if I go to Amazon, I want to know exactly what size this thing is, that I'm purchasing. You want professional, honest descriptions. Don't write a description that's sales. This will cure all your woes. It's you want something that's believable and honest, because people can definitely smell that out now for sure, that like, hey, look, this product's not going to give me everything that I'm desiring. So product reviews, and these kind of go hand in hand, product reviews and photo reviews. When you have those reviews on there for other clients to see other clients using it, it kind of it validates that, and it's like, hey, oh yeah, so like these reviews, other people like this, I'm going to buy this too. And another thing that you can do on your single product page is having upsells. Upsells are going to be like, hey, people that already bought this product too. Do you want to purchase that? It's giving you little effort into selling another product that you may be trying to, sell. So an example of this would be like Adidas.com. They have, and like I said, this is a single product page. So they have like what is called breadcrumbs. It's like, hey, we're on women's shoes. I can choose, whatever size I need. And then sometimes, like I was noticing that if they didn't have the size, it was clearly like labeled, hey, like we don't actually have a size 7. Um, then the price is there, it's on sale. Hey, that's going to entice me more, because I don't want to. I'd rather spend $53.75. And then I clearly have a call to action of how to add that to my cart. It's There's no confusion. And then how the flow works, we go to checkout. So we've got the product in our cart, we're ready to go. You want to avoid the checkout friction. Don't make them do extra work. Uh, it's like they'll end up with, like, the product in their cart, and they'll just want to leave. Like if it's going to be a hassle to get to the end point. Avoiding checkout friction, and then giving them more payment options. Um, if I had to get up and get my credit card to do a payment, chances are that might make me second guess. Maybe not every time. Maybe it's something I really, really want. But if you provide the one-click option, it's like, oh, hey, pay with PayPal. Um, and they're like, oh, I have a PayPal account. I have money in that account. I'm going to check out. And then additional upsells. You can say, hey, before you go, we have this product as well. Why don't you check this out? So little effort, and you get to kind of plug another product. Example checkout pages. As you can tell, I really like shoes. So Allbirds has got a great example. So when I add the product to my cart, there it shows me what I've added to my cart and in what color. And then here's an upsell down here. It's like, you may also like this shoe, and then has all the colors variated with that shoe. I'm like, oh, actually, I do like that one, and I really like blue. Maybe I'll add that. And then when they are actually in the checkout process, you have Shop Pay, Amazon Pay, and then PayPal. Or you can just go ahead and add your credit card if that's the way you want to pay, but there's options for them. And that brings us into chapter 3, which is how to improve your site traffic. So how to get more people to your site. So some suggestions that we have are to start a blog, to increase search engine optimization. So going in and adding title tags and meta descriptions to your site, but we'll talk more about that. And then social media pay-per-click campaigns. Let's go to the next slide. So blogging, first off, you're going to want to find a niche that you can talk to. You don't want to be super general. If you're selling, like let's say you're selling apparel, you'd probably want to talk about the apparel on your site rather than talk about unrelevant content. It's going to keep people interested in and like know that they can come to your site for that specific thing to read about it. You're also going to want to offer value in your blog post to your customers. Just having a picture with a line of text, which I've seen before, is simple, yes, but it's not providing any value to a reader. They're not getting any information. Another way is to attach backlinks to other products or other companies that you are trying to promote it within the blog post. So you can also encourage interactions by having your customers leave comments and then replying to those comments, or having other customers reply to their comments. So that encourages the interaction on those blog posts. And then post regularly. Nothing kills a subscriber base as fast as not actually posting when you say you're going to post. People get frustrated and may forget about the blog. Search engine optimization is the quality and quantity of search engine traffic to your website. You can use a plugin on your website called Yoast, and what that does is it allows you to add title tags and meta descriptions as you're going through like your different pages. That's going to help boost ranking on Bing and Google. Now this doesn't happen overnight. Everybody I've I shouldn't say everybody, but I've ran into quite a few people who think that search engine optimization, it's like within like 10 days their site's going to be on the first page of Google. Well, it's a very long process. Basically, you kind of have to work on it because everybody is trying to get, there's other people that are in your industry trying to push their website first on Google and Bing and other search engines, and you're competing against them. So it's work, but it's worth it. And then social media pay-per-click campaigns. Everybody is on social media these days. One of the things pay-per-click is measurable and trackable. So you can uh, go in and see how many people are clicking on that campaign. So you can see, what kind of information is, going out to these people. And if they're clicking on it and they're, responding to what you've put into your social media. So like if it's like a new blog that you've put out and they've clicked on it and they're like, oh, hey, so you can see that. So it's trackable. You're in control of it as well. You kind of get to decide what demographic you're reaching with pay-per-click campaigns. Are you trying to target more men than women? Are you trying to target a certain age group? You kind of get to be in control of that because social media has all that information on their platform for the users. So. And that brings us to chapter 4. And I'm going to hand the mic back to Devin and let him tell you about how to develop customer relationships.
All right, chapter 4. Okay, I'm finishing up an answer real quick. Some of these answers, Belinda, just to give you a heads up, I'm saying, let's ask Belinda at the end. So
Okay.
get ready for the hot seat.
All
We're gonna
right.
ask
Hot
this
seat is on.
towards the end. So today we're talking about how to develop your customer relationships, and looks like we went one slide too far. See if we can back up just one slide. Belinda, can you try to go back one slide? There, nope, we're going the wrong direction. There we go, perfect, perfect. Okay, so I think when you have an e-commerce store and you're getting everything set up, there's no greater feeling than when you get your first sale. Someone actually wants to pay for something that you created and put out into the world. That's wonderful. It's awesome, especially if it's your first time creating an e-commerce store. However, as time goes on and you get more and more sales, I think it's important to realize the power of building relationships with your customers and helping them to become returning customers. So that's what we're going to be talking a little bit about in this section, building lasting relationships. And specifically, we're going to be talking about a couple things within that. We're going to be talking about email marketing, how you can leverage that to build relationships with your customers. We're going to talk about surveying your customers. Opening a feedback loop is something that I know is very important, especially in the e-commerce world. And responding to reviews can be very, very helpful in building those relationships, and also observing site analytics. All of these things have one or two threads that are in common. One, it's opening that line of communication with your customer. You're reaching out to them saying, hey, I want to hear from you as an end user of my product. Help me understand more about you, how you use my product, how it benefits your life, what made you purchase it, and you can use those data points to implement into your future marketing or into your online marketing assets and when you're writing about your product. So going into email marketing, first of all, what is email marketing? Basically, lead generation. Email marketing allows you to do a handful of things. One of them is capture leads. And lead generation, as it says here, is a process of getting a certain group of people to notice, trust, and be interested in your business So if it focuses on generating leads, it can help bring in high quality prospects. When you have good prospects, you get good customers. So basically, you can do lead generation campaigns all over the internet. They don't need to be just on your website, although I would recommend somewhere on your website, you ask people for their email address so they can subscribe to your newsletter or so they can subscribe to your promotional marketing materials, whatever it might be. Give them an opportunity to stay in touch with you and stay in contact with you. And that allows you to nurture that relationship. Sometimes they're called nurture campaigns with email marketing. So if you want to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that, you're more than welcome to. And as we say here, if you add a subscriber field to your website, you can connect it to an email marketing platform. So you're collecting your customers' email addresses, and you can start building out a list of people who want to hear from you, people that you can share promotional offers, newsletter, things like that. So when Belinda and I were creating this, we wanted to sit down and come up with a handful of different email campaigns that you could create in order to help develop that relationship with your customer, because especially in today's world and climate, people want to interact with an authentic brand. More and more often, people are interested in working with a brand that is behind a good cause, or is aligned with them politically sometimes, or aligned with their goals or their lifestyle sometimes. So here's a handful of email marketing triggers and campaigns that you can use to communicate with your customers, to open that feedback loop, to open those lines of communication. Up at the top of the list, we have cart abandonment. If you add something to your cart and then, or sorry, if one of your customers adds something to their cart and then navigates away from your website, you can have an email campaign that reaches out to them and say, hey, I noticed that you didn't complete your checkout. Here's a link to your cart if you'd like to continue that. So sometimes that's if someone is just forgetful, or if they didn't have time to complete your checkout process, that can be really helpful to get them back in and get them what they need to complete that purchase. And that kind of falls under the lines of a retention campaign. If someone says that they are no longer interested in your product, or they no longer want to be part of your brand, or if they don't want to be one of your customers, I know it's very popular to have a retention campaign to ask them, hey, what is making you step away from this service or this product? What can we do to keep you as a customer? And I think that does two things. One, it shows the customer that's thinking about leaving that you really do care about them as a customer, and that you're trying to improve your product, and that you care about your customers' feedback. And two, it gives them an opportunity to reconsider their decision and say, okay, you know what? Maybe I was just having a bad day, and I now that I've thought about it a little bit more, I really do appreciate this monthly subscription that I'm a part of. Other email triggers that you can use in email campaigns, you can have holiday campaigns, sales campaigns. I'm sure all of us get these emails all the time, and there's a reason why most of our inboxes are full of these emails, and it's because they work. Not at a high efficiency necessarily, but it's something that once you set up, if you automate it with an email tool like MailChimp or Constant Contact, or I think even HubSpot has something similar to that. If you automate that, then once you get that up and running, all you need to do is find ways to get it more email addresses, and it will take care of the rest from there. So a couple of the campaigns, and I won't go through this entire list. If there is one in here that you want to hear more about, then feel free to drop that in the question box. But if you have a new product that you want to highlight, then you can send that out to your customers and say, hey, we just dropped a new clothing line, or a spring line, or whatever it might be. We're doing a discount on our Memorial Day. I know Memorial Day is just around the corner, and I haven't checked my email in the last little bit, but I guarantee you I have a handful of promotional sales campaigns saying, hey, check out our products. I think it's also helpful to send out welcome emails or account setup emails, something that said, and something that I want to back up and maybe should have said earlier. We're throwing a lot of different information at you, and some of it is a little bit high level, but that's because there's so many different directions you can take an e-commerce website. And obviously, this is not a list of every campaign that you should run all the time, but this can give you a handful of ideas for you to go and pick and choose the ones that work best for you. And then from there, you can go in and say, okay, I have a subscription service, so I want to make sure that I have a retention campaign. Or, I have a lawn cutting service, so I want to make sure that I have an event reminder saying, hey, it's first day of summer. So make sure that you are up to date with all of your lawn cutting needs or your landscaping needs. And then one that I think is also important, if you do have an account-based e-commerce store, having an update campaign and what I mean by that is, excuse me, if you're going to be running updates on their website that might affect your users' availability to get into the website and to access their information, I highly recommend you send out an email saying, hey, your account might not be accessible for the next 4 hours, or even better if you can give it sometime in the future. 2 weeks from today, your website is going to go down between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m. as we do some updates. And I think that can be very useful, and that can build trust between you and your customer, and it can help you come across as an authentic brand and let your voice come through. Moving on to surveys. I think surveys is a great way to get the most out of your e-commerce website, because it allows you to check in with your customers and say, hey, you tell me what we can do to improve this. We're here for you. We want you to get the most out of our product or our service. So why don't you give us some feedback? And I think there's a handful of different surveys that are important, but a big one is, how is your experience? And an example that comes to mind of that is whenever you order food to your door, and I suspect most of us have done that at least once in the past 2 or 3 years with everything that's been going on. But it seems like miraculously, whenever I finish my meal, as soon as I am finished cleaning up from it, I get a notification from the app that I ordered from saying, hey, do you mind filling out this survey? We want to hear, how is your meal? How is the food? How is our service? And I think there's a couple of takeaways that we can glean from that experience. I think they do a great job of finding the right window of time. So you want to survey your customers when they're at the peak of their experience. So that might be, depending on what you're trying to get feedback on, that might be right after they purchase, or that might be right after they've used it for the first time. Or if you have something super durable, maybe it's 5 years down the road, and you want to say, hey, I want to see if your climbing harness is still working, or do you still love that harness? And I know Amazon does this a lot, where it will send something out and say, hey, do you mind taking some time to review the product? And I think trying to find the right window of time is something that isn't always easy, but I think if you know your product and you know what you're selling, then that can help you find the right time to reach out to someone or to your customer base for a survey. I think another key takeaway from the Uber Eats and DoorDash example is how clear and concise they are. Surveys should only contain the relevant questions, especially with a situation like DoorDash or Uber Eats, where you're already logged into the device, so they already have most of the information that they might be curious about, as far as your name, age, and things like that. And sometimes you can even pull that information from IP addresses and from the browsers that are accessing your website. But I think when you survey your customers, it gives them an opportunity to have their voice be heard. And I think that can be absolutely critical in getting the most out of your e-commerce website. Listen to the surveys, listen to what they're saying. Sometimes if someone's saying good things, then that's basically that's basically a brand advocate, and those people will continue talking about your company down the road, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. The last takeaway, I think, from surveying your customer in this situation is make sure that it's frictionless. Make sure that it's aesthetically pleasing and easy to follow. Showing a progress bar can be helpful so the clients know how much time they'll be investing as they're taking your survey is absolutely critical. If you get a survey that pops up on your phone or in the email, sometimes just saying, hey, do you mind filling out this 4-question survey? Sometimes that's all it takes. And everyone's time is very precious. So it's, if someone knows, hey, this is only going to take 4 or 5 minutes, then I think it's a lot easier for them to participate. Moving on to the next slide, another type of survey. How can we improve? And I think you'll sometimes get this same information from the previous survey that we were talking about. But I think this happens a lot with subscription-based companies like Netflix, insurance companies, internet providers. And oftentimes this is when someone's trying to depart or after they've canceled or sometimes before they canceled, you know? And I think it's a great opportunity for you to get relevant feedback and to take that feedback back to your product team and say, okay, everyone says that fill in the blank from the survey, you know, everyone says that we're having issues with connectivity or they, you know, I heard that Netflix is starting to crack down on how many people can access an account. So maybe that's some feedback that they'll get. People are going to close out and say, hey, I've got 3 devices in my house and you're only letting me watch Netflix on one of them at a time, and that doesn't work for me. But it's an opportunity for you to hear from your customers, hear from the end users, and find ways to improve your product moving forward. Moving on briefly, let's see. Not letting me advance. Belinda, might need you to, there we go. Perfect, thank you. Responding to reviews, I think this can be great as a part of the feedback loop. When someone leaves a review on your website or about your product on Google or about your store or on Yelp, you know, there's so many different places where people can leave reviews. And I think we're going in as that business and responding them can be critical to helping your brand grow and to help you get the most out of your e-commerce store. For one, as people are looking where they want to invest their time or their money, if they see that you are actively responding to reviews, it increases their likelihood that they will shop with you as opposed to a competitor that is not responsive. It also shows authenticity. You're never going to have a 5-star product. There's always going to be someone that has a bad day or didn't read the description of your product, and they'll give you even if it's a 4-star review, you know, that ruins your 5-star rating, obviously. So going in and responding to negative reviews gives you a chance to own your mistakes and to show that you're learning from them, to say, hey, okay, maybe this wasn't the right product for you, or I'm sorry that you had a bad experience with our store. We love to fix it. Going in and helping them understand your side of it, or to hear more about their side and to hear from them what you can do to fix their situation. I think that goes a long ways with consumers. It also encourages other people to leave reviews. If they see that the store owner is paying attention and then they're watching, then I think it helps users understand that this is not just something that they're writing out into the empty internet. This is someone that is actually listening and responding. It also shows customer appreciation. It shows that you care about what your customers think. And if you get a positive review, it's an opportunity to request a testimonial or review that you could put on your website. You know, maybe say, hey, I saw you wrote 2 or 3 great sentences about my store. We loved interacting with you too. Can you write a little bit more about that? Would you mind submitting a paragraph about your experience that we could post on our website? If someone leaves a positive review, that's a brand advocate and they'll promote your brand. So find a way to work with them if you can. Negative reviews is still an opportunity for you to improve something. You can improve their situation. You know, if they have a bad experience, if it ends on a good note, then sometimes they won't be a brand detractor. So someone that is leaving a negative review is a brand detractor, and obviously we want as few of those as possible. But if you have a good customer experience relationship with them, then you can change them from a brand detractor to a brand advocate. And last but not least, obviously responding to reviews shows that you are listening to your feedback loop. So you can use those reviews to give relevant feedback about your product to your product team or whoever's developing your product. Moving on, and I think we're getting towards the end here, so I'll try to be brief so that we can get to any questions that we might have. Observing site analytics, I think, is a great way to strengthen your relationships with your customers and to get the most out of your e-commerce website. Observing site analytics through Jetpack or Monster Insights, those are both WordPress plugins, or through a third-party program like Google Analytics. If you observe site analytics, I think you can understand your customers' behaviors. You can see which sites that drives most traffic to your website. You know, that's referral traffic that we have listed here. Where's site traffic coming from? You can see where in the process customers are leaving your website. So you can see where you have a high bounce rate, and you can understand what is causing customers to leave your website, and then you can go in and you can make adjustments accordingly to that. You can also understand the demographic and geographical data that comes to your website. So Google Analytics, I know, does it, and I think Monster Insight pulls some of that information in as well, so that you can see what age people are coming to your website. It can give you what gender the people are that are coming to your website. This isn't 100% accurate. You know, if a young man gets on his mother's computer and is shopping around or something, then on the analytics side, it might not show up as a young man. It might show up as his mother's profile. But I think over time, that as you get more data points, you can fill that in and you can have a better understanding of who is coming to your website, and you can use that information to make changes in your website and to improve the site design and the site formatting to cater more towards the demographic. And maybe it can help with your product creation as well. So I believe that's everything that we have for today. We don't have a ton of time for questions and answer, but just advancing to the next slide, we'll review very briefly the different things that we went over today. I think it's important to have a strong foundation. And once you have that strong foundation, you want to put yourself in your user's shoes, go through your store experience what they see when they go through your store, and look for opportunities to improve that experience so that your customers, I think a good way to put it is you never want to let your website get in the way of a potential customer turning into a customer, meaning you never want someone to walk away from your website because they came across something that was too unwieldy or was too difficult or didn't work for whatever reason. And then we also talked today about driving relevant traffic to your sites, getting traffic there. Belinda gave some great tips on that. And then we finished on how to build lasting relationships. So if you apply the things that we talked about today, then I know that you will see more sales out of your websites. I know that you will have you can get more out of your e-commerce website by applying the things that we talked about today. So I believe that brings us to the Q&A portion of today's conversation. So I'll come back on camera, and I think Belinda will be joining me momentarily. Here she is. Thank you, Belinda. We don't have a ton of time. I'm afraid I might have gone on a little bit too long, and I apologize for that.
Oh, I'm
Thank you
sure I
to everyone
rambled
that
too.
has stuck around. Are
So
there
I
any?
started
Yeah,
answering.
I was going to say, I see that you have answered a handful of questions in here. Are there any
Um,
that you want to save, or do you want me to go back
no,
uh,
I'll let you lead that and just
okay.
ask away.
Okay, so Eric asked about getting help building a site from the ground up. And I know we have services that help people get off the ground, but his specific situation was an e-commerce site. And he says he needs help from the start to set up over 2,000 products. And so I'm curious
Ooh.
if Bluehost has any limitations as far as what we can help with the design side. And if that does exceed our limitations, if you have any suggestions as to where he could find a great developer.
So yeah, what we have as far as in Bluehost that can help with that is we do add about 10 products and kind of show you how to do that. We do have a terrific mods team that also helps you go through adding those products in. So kind of how it works is you get kind of paired with a designer or a marketer, and they get paired with a designer who then builds the site, and you get like some onboarding information that kind of comes in and along with your products. So like I said, we can add 10, and then they show you how to add more products in. We also have WP Live or Blue Sky. We kind of use that synonymously, but it's the same thing. There is a team of people here that will walk you through adding products to your site. One of the I think key takeaways though is adding the 2000 products. You can build that out in like a CSV file and actually import it into your site. So like that's another thing that you can kind of look up on how to do. So it's called it's comma separated value Excel file is what it is. So CSV file. When you like what I do when I'm trying to download or put up a bunch of products, sorry, this long-winded explanation. When I'm trying to put a bunch of products in, um, what I'll do is I'll download or export what is it? A WooCommerce file, and then I will put all my products in there and then re-upload it. So that's kind of how I do it fast. But yeah, what we have to offer is 10 products. You can pay to have like I think 10 more, and I think it's up to 20. I think. And then we have the mods team and WP Live. So we have support there to help you.
Awesome. Okay, the next question I have, someone says, I use Bluehost as my host, but when I got to Elementor free sites, I want to use a shop site. Are there any free shopping sites on Elementor? I'm not as familiar with Elementor. I wasn't sure if you were familiar enough to know. I'm sure they have something that allows WooCommerce to work with Elementor, but I wasn't sure if you knew any more specifics on that.
So yeah, so Elementor is kind of more of like how you design the site. It's got elements to build out your site, so you can use Elementor to bring in a product carousel, let's say, or a product grid. Um, to to build it you wouldn't build it with Elementor. It's kind of let's say that's like the skin. And then WooCommerce on WordPress would be what you're building your shop out with. So there's not really free, like, I mean, there might be like templates to look at. And I think there was another person that asked a question about like other templates that you can take a look at. And I always recommend themeforest.net to, kind of gain ideas, but you would design it with the Elementor plugin, and base level is totally fine. They have plenty of widgets and plenty of elements to use in Elementor for a shop. I also recommend a plugin called Ultimate Add-ons for Elementor that gives you a little bit more elements to work with, especially for the WooCommerce. But if you're going to just start, it would be WordPress. WooCommerce would be your store, designed with Elementor.
Okay, awesome. We have 3 minutes left. I'm wondering if we can get two, maybe three questions answered. So
Shoot,
rapid fire round.
rapid fire round.
Someone is asking e-commerce plugins. One, as far as an e-commerce store, if we have a recommendation. Mine is WooCommerce. I don't know if you
That would be
have
mine
any.
too.
Okay, that's WooCommerce is that one then. And then any plugins to support that store. I know that Yith
Yes.
has a handful, but I wasn't sure if there are any plugins that you specifically recommend when it comes to that.
I always hit up Yith. They have a great base of them. They have gift cards, they have wish lists, they have filters. So yeah, look for anything by Yith, Yith. It's they're a great company.
Yeah, and they actually have, if I remember correctly, over 100 plugins that
Yeah.
act kind of like extensions. You mentioned a handful of gift cards. Subscription,
Hmm.
I think, is one of them, membership. So it just depends on what direction you want to take your e-commerce store, but I would highly recommend, as Belinda did, looking at that.
Yep.
How do you know if your cart is abandoned?
Oh, okay. So how you know your cart is abandoned is WooCommerce actually has a feature in it that when somebody fills out information, that the it shows like a icon under settings. So you got WooCommerce, and then you have like kind of a list on your dashboard, and it says cart abandonment, and it tells how many have been abandoned. So they'll enter some information, and then it shows you that information that they entered, so then you can like rescoop them back up for upsells through their email.
Awesome. And in the closing minute, I'll finish with this one, and you can correct me if I say something wrong. Someone asked, can we recycle content amongst our email, blog, and social media marketing, or would that seem repetitive to customers? And we should keep the content on each avenue unique. My answer to that is for sure use the same content in multi-facets. Oftentimes brands will do that intentionally as a brand campaign. So it's like if you have a Memorial Day service or a Memorial Day sale, then you'll use similar branding in your email marketing and you'll use similar branding in your social, and you can have a blog about that as well. So that would be my recommendation. I still think that you should tweak it a little bit depending on the channel that you're implementing it in. But as far as the overall content, I think displaying the same message across the board is very beneficial.
Yeah, you have no idea what somebody's gonna like come into. They might go to their website, they might go to your Facebook page. You have no idea. So blast it out.
Yep. All right. Well, thank you all so much for tuning in today. We are at time, so we have to close this down. If we didn't get to your question, we'll try to reach out via email. For those that tuned in late, we are sending out a recording in the next 24 hours to everyone that registered. So thank you so much for everyone that tuned in. And thank you, Belinda, for stopping by and helping us learn how to get more out of our e-commerce sites.
All right, thanks for having me.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.